Hi, everyone. This is Giovanni Tropiano, the Director of Digital Marketing with Actifio, and I want to thank you for joining us in this week's blog post. We are actually joined by Ashish Nanoka and John Anarelli of Yash Solutions. Ashish is the CTO of Yash, and John is the Managing Director. And I also have with us Jay Livens, the Senior Director of Product Marketing here at Actifio. Today we're going to be talking about DevOps in general. So Jay, why don't you take it away?
Thanks so much, Gio, and thanks so much, Ashish and John, for joining us. What I thought would be helpful is to really get sort of before we get started, maybe give us 2 seconds on your background, who you are, who is Yash Solutions, what do you guys do, because not everyone listening might be familiar with you guys and your business.
Sure. So this is John Anarelli, Managing Director at Yash Solutions. Yash Solutions has been in business 17 years, and over that time, we've serviced enterprise clients all around the country, based out of Atlanta, Georgia. And what we do is get into a lot of operational initiatives for, say, the first 10 years of our existence. But over the last 7 years or so, we've really been involved in a lot of application-related projects. So since we've been working with Actifio over the last probably 4 years or so, we've really gotten into a lot of areas in application development for data virtualization. So while that has taken off for us, as we've had some pretty good-sized wins in that space, what we've done in the last 2 years or so is really tried to tie everything together, especially as the industry is going toward DevOps, and looking to offer our clients bundled solutions. So tying in technology, multiple things in the environment, and then some additional automation, which Ashish is going to talk about. That has really been something that we've been developing internally for about the last year or so. And, I'll turn it over to Ashish to talk about some of the technical aspects of that, but that, in a nutshell, is a little bit about our background and our initiatives going around the DevOps space.
Thank you, John. This is Ashish Nanoka, CTO of Yash Solutions. So with the efforts that we are doing in the DevOps space, we are building a solution that is very generic, pertaining to various different sections, so let's say verticals in DevOps space, which very few people touch upon. Our target is to have a seamless experience across all the stages of DevOps. Would it be along the code lines? Would it be along the databases? Would it be along the operations side of it, or the human, cultural, and behavioral part of it, which everybody maybe talks about, but they pay very little attention when it comes to implementation part. So we have been working with our clients, taking feedbacks, looking back on our experience, and building something for the future. At the same time, making it cost-effective for our clients and trying to make sure that they are future-ready when it comes to switching the technology or building up the skills or self-sustaining the mechanisms or creating systems that are self-aware, self-healing, and spread across multiple geographical locations. So trying to understand problem at very generic level, which can be then specialized in different client situations. So that is what we are working on right now. And a couple of things which are going to be future impacting from our perspective that we see are containerization technologies, data virtualization technologies out there, orchestrations, cloud agnostic services, hybrid clouds, hyper-converged infrastructures, and all that stuff. So looking forward, a couple of days from now, we might be launching our own solution into the market. So that would be great to see how clients come up with their ideas, their feedback, so that we build and form a larger, vibrant ecosystem around the DevOps space.
Great, thanks. I think DevOps is an area that we hear so much about, and I'm curious with you folks talking to so many companies, I'm wondering what trends that you see in DevOps that you see your companies asking about on a pretty consistent basis. Just interested for the listeners.
Thank you, Jay, for the question. There are particular trends, let's say, in a field of virtualization. First, that's the one that has been going around for long. Second one, which is a late trend, I would say it is late because people have now started catching up on the concepts of the way DevOps works with Agile and brings agility to your environment. That second understanding. Third understanding is on the lines of agnostic services rather than vendor-specific services. And I'll talk about all of these 3 points in detail. So the first one I talked about is about the DevOps space being in lines with Agile, right? So people were talking about Agile for a long time now. Agile Manifesto came in, and 2014 late and 15, they came up with a new Agile Manifesto, which is 4-point manifesto that talks only about making people awesome. And that's the whole point of it. So when we are doing DevOps or trying to bring in agility in our companies, we always need to be on our toes to adapt, to provide environments which are allowing people to fail and fail fast, at the same time catching them, not letting the problem seep through in production. So we want our softwares to be always in a deployable state, right? And we always want our people to be productive, not blocking each another. So for that to take place in a DevOps space, you need to make sure that you have the right collection of tools. And people have started to understand that. So how can we use technology to change or transform the way we behave culturally inside the organization? The type of team structure that should be there, distributions, the way communication happens, the hierarchy structure and all that stuff, including the tools and processes that we set. And the adoption rate of the tools is also that something matters. That's the first trend that I've seen in market, that people are more aware about their culture now. They are trying to move towards a startup-like economy where they can lower down the costs, make sure that each and every person on their team is accountable and takes ownership of the stuff. That is the first trend that is driving the DevOps initiatives the way it is driving now. Otherwise, it was only confined to the market leaders of the industry, right? Then it started seeping down. And it's good that we are at the right time, at the right place to take this at a greater speed. Another trend that I see is about the virtualization technologies. So initially, when people were talking about data centers or on-prem setups, it was mostly about physical boxes. Now they are moving to cloud. That's the trend that everybody's talking about. And when we move to cloud, we talk about APIs and integrations and options that we have because there is a wide platform. There are a lot of choices that we can choose from, right? So choose from a particular cloud vendor or particular service, or maybe choose a platform that will allow you to spread your footprint across the globe on different cloud solutions. There are a lot of possibilities down there. And when people talk about that, they try to experiment with it and they come up with a new problem, right? And every problem comes up with its own solution and possibilities in that area. So something like, let's say you're setting up things on a virtual machine and then paying enormously, even if you're not paying upfront, your monthly bills on cloud would be enormous. So they are coming up with new options, and there's a blooming technology around containerization that is going on. So virtualization is slowly moving from your VMs towards containers, from monolith architectures of applications towards microservice architectures. Your monitoring changes the way it was before. Your logging sequence changes. The way applications behave internally is different. They have various different processes communicating with each other, various different services talking to one another, which defines the way your operating system should work, which defines the way your infrastructure should work. And applications are getting more and more infrastructure aware these days. So initially, when people used to develop, they used to develop in a cave. They go out and then deploy on prod, which caused a lot of problems. And this is what we are trying to solve with DevOps. Now today, it's good to see that applications are infrastructure aware. That means they know what kind of infrastructure is going to be there, how many cores are going to be there, do I need to have multiprocessing or multi-threading, what kind of third-party calls is going to be made. So this virtualization and self-awareness in the apps is the next trend that is going to be really, really beneficial and will drive the DevOps to a completely new direction. Now, the third trend that I'm seeing in DevOps is about virtualization in the data space. So when I talk about that, I'm also going to talk about the vendor locking scenarios here. So let's say you have code and you want to deploy it somewhere. What people generally talk about is, I have the code, developer is developing it, I need to take it, create a DevOps pipeline and deploy it somewhere. What goes needlessly with it without talking about it is the data on which your application is dependent. And that's very important. So if you have a production environment and you create a test environment, a lot of people that we see, a lot of clients that we have worked with before, all they do is they seed their data, they create a new database, they try to recreate the scenarios from the data that they have, or let's say reverse, they try to generate the data with the scenario list that they have. And needless to say, it doesn't suffice all the testing scenarios. And something on the production happens. You're not able to recreate it, you're not able to debug it because of the loss of data, or you don't have the data for regenerating that scenario internally. A lot of problems, right? Creation of environments is a trouble, replication is a trouble in the test environments. And that causes problems that no one wants themselves to be in. Now, this data virtualization space, when bundled with the DevOps solutions, gives us a totally different dimensions of doing debugging or handling the root cause analysis, or let's say creation of on-demand environments where you don't need seeding of data. You can work with the same scale of data as your production setup without the additional costs. That's wonderful. So that is what is the third one, which also brings into picture what about the solutions that are being provided by vendors as a single one-stop shop. Something like, let's say I have a software, or someone says that I have a software which takes care of DevOps as a whole, complete DevOps setup, right from the CI till the CD part. So this is where I see another trend seeping in, that people are moving away from vendor locking situations. So they want them to be in a place where a specific set is handled by specialists. So let's say we have CI for a special tool, or we do CD with another one, we do provisioning with yet another, configuration with some different setup, monitoring with some another tool, and logging with some another tool that gives us specialists in different areas. So people are moving towards that, which reduces the cost, reduces the burdens, keeps their teams nimble. One of the another reason for layoffs, right? We can eliminate that at all. So this is another trend going on. So we will have specialists coming in for every separate section, where the DevOps service providers would be talking about assessments, tracking your state, and building everything together, just crafted specially for your organization. So this is where it is leading, and technologies will keep coming and going. That we all are looking at that. We all have witnessed it. 5 years down from now, it would be a completely different world that we see today.
Great. So that does sort of bring the question, because, obviously technology is evolving, as you rightly point out, with the various tools and the agility and the virtualization and such. So as you look into your crystal ball and you look out the next 5 and 10 some odd years, what do you think the DevOps market will look like? Like, how will those initiatives be different then than they are now? How will that change processes as we know them today in 10 years?
10 years is a lot of time. I'm no wizard for that. But the way I see the future coming, um, the boom in the DevOps market as we see today would not last for more than 5-6 years from now. That's what I think it would be. The DevOps market would be saturated in coming 5-6 years, and so everybody will know what they are doing. Everybody will have proper skills and personnel to carry on with the services. The era post that part is an interesting one that I believe. What I see is that in DevOps, people will. So remember, I talked about people trying to avoid a vendor locking situations or bringing in specialists for a particular domain. The DevOps ecosystem will be broken down into various different verticals. So we will have specialists for a particular vertical, let's say CI specialists or CD specialists or deployment specialists. So it would be an era filled with all specialties, and the roles would be called as we see it in a couple of larger organizations. They're called site reliability engineers. We will not have a DevOps space anymore. We will have reliability engineers talking about end-to-end systems all by themselves rather than going to some other party and then setting up DevOps for them. Just like it was for Agile way back when everybody was trying to adopt the things, but now everybody is saying that we are doing it ourselves. So there is no boom in that. Similarly for DevOps space, this is the right time that we do DevOps. In coming 5 years, 6 years, this is the most vibrant, brilliant time that we could be in for the DevOps evolution to happen. The next phase is going to be the phase of specialties. That's what I believe in. And a couple of more things that would contribute to DevOps in the way that we have never thought about is machine learning and AI space. Couple of vendors have already started using machine learning in DevOps areas, but interesting part is how do everyone contribute to that? So that is the newer dimension that we should be looking at and prepare ourselves for the next 6-7 years, or maybe for 6 year to 10-year duration from now.
Excellent. Cool. I like the idea of machine learning. Is very powerful and interesting. I want to bring it back, though, to the present, because there were some statistics a few years back talking about the failure of DevOps initiatives, and I can't remember the data, but it was a higher percentage than most would expect. And so I'm curious, in your perspective, when you talk to companies who are working on DevOps initiatives and you're helping guide them along that path, what are the biggest challenges that you see them facing as they're going on their DevOps journey?
To answer that in one word, the word would be called heat. So people fail to realize the heat transition creates, or when you want to transform or change, that is the most difficult thing an organization has to go through. But after the change, that's the most beautiful thing that the organization could look like in future. The same is with DevOps transitions. When we go to clients, we talk about things that we want to offer to them, the problems that we would be solving with bringing in DevOps. We understand that it's not just about tools, and we don't keep people in dark and fool them that, okay, it is just going to be about tools and set up this tool and you'll be done. We tell them about everything that needs to be known to all level of stakeholders. And that being said, when we talk about that, they are aware of all the things happening, so we can chalk down a path to avoid or maybe reduce the heat to the minimum. But when that doesn't happen, people always complain about DevOps failures. They talk about low rate of adoption. They say we tried doing this particular tool We tried putting in this particular tool or a solution. We brought in this vendor, but it failed miserably. Our teams were not able to adapt. They were not able to adopt a new tool. They were not able to change their way of thinking. Or we tried to do automation, but it failed in production environments. A lot of problems when they start giving up on the new initiatives. Okay, so it is all about well-planned strategies. If an expert comes in who is aware of all of these failure parts of it, remember this is all about cultural aspect. It's not about technology at all. I've seen people do DevOps with just a bunch of stones and sticks. So it would be just your rsync scripts, your shell scripts, and nothing else. It's not about fancy tools or let's say something like Kubernetes coming in or Ansible coming in and we need to set up that in order to call ourselves as a DevOps company. No, it's not like that. So if the solution that you're bringing in is brought up from bottom, so in Agile, when we practice Agile, we talk about self-monitoring teams, self-innovating teams, which bring up solutions by themselves, and the solution should grow or, let's say, evolve and vote up from bottom up in an organization, not percolated or forced top down. When the top down forcing happens, the people who are responsible for actually implementing it is the bottom line, and they get all the heat, right? When the things are forced down, and that does not work in DevOps space because it is a lot cultural aspect than it is a technical. When someone chooses a tool and then simply says that, hey, this is a tool, we would be using this one from tomorrow onwards, get onboarded on it. It's not as easy as that, right? And that is a major problem. Another problem is people not being able to understand the requirements that DevOps implementation has. Very first, higher organization must be sponsoring that. They must buy into the complete concept because it's only because of their support, the lower hierarchy channels or hierarchy people can take up the responsibilities and act on it. Another one is understanding that it requires change in some hierarchical ways, the ways your teams communicate, the ways they are structured. It needs some change, if not always, but sometimes. That is another one. Third point that people generally look over or are not able to understand is the way DevOps should be introduced. So at different levels in an organization or different levels of organization maturity, we have got different ways of injecting DevOps into their workflows, where the team structures might be different, or you set up a example in before their eyes and they can evolve to it, or you take up an existing project and then try to inject DevOps into it, or you take a fresh one and then try to spread it horizontally into your organization, or you take one thing at a time in an organization which is well structured and try to then seep into the mindsets. There are numerous different things that you could do, but that is only possible when you allow an expert to walk in and do an expert analysis on your state and then come up with a plan that what suits you best. Because what I believe is every organization is different, right? They do their business differently, and they are the ones who understand their business the best, the way they can. And when it is at the technology part, it has to go with the business stakeholders. It has to follow the company's vision. Every company who is doing software development has got its own strengths. They have got their own people who are good at something. If we don't understand that part and simply say that we want to do this without understanding what you are really good at, it is going to be a failure, isn't it? So that's what I see. But if you seek help from someone who's willing to help you out, leading you through the way, understanding and telling you what the risks are and trying to mitigating them, it is definitely going to be a success for both of you.
Thanks. And that was sort of getting to my final question, funny enough, but still want to ask it because I'm sure there's additional insights you can provide. which is, when you're thinking or talking to companies about DevOps and DevOps initiatives, what is the top advice that you normally provide to them? Or put a different way, if I'm a company thinking about implementing a DevOps initiative, what would you advise me to do to prepare myself to be successful so that my project will achieve my goals and not fall short?
Very first thing when we talk about DevOps implementation or let's say adoption is that talk to an expert first, because it is like doing self-medication without having proper assessment done, right? And things may go wrong, and definitely everybody needs a godfather who can help them out when they are in trouble. So with a new project that is coming in, when your team is not accustomed to the newer things, right? And you walk in, you seek help to someone, that is the first thing that everybody should do, rather than only filling up online forms which claim to be self-assessment forms and giving you idea of nothing where you stand nowhere, right? It's not going to help. When a person walks in, he assesses your situation, understands what your company goals are and what you're trying to do, he might be able to help you out. And that might also be free because you're simply seeking an advice. And it is completely welcome that you try to do things your way, but seeking help is something that everybody should do. That's a gentleman's thing to do, right? Everybody does that. Second one is to chart out a plan of adoption. It's not something that you do everything at once. So DevOps for me is not a revolution that happens. It's evolution, and it's a slow, steady paced evolution. If you try to eat everything at once, trying to implement DevOps, that is going to be a failure. So that is a piece of advice that I would give companies who are trying to adopt that. So seek in advice. Second, go with the evolution flow. Don't try to like create a revolution around it. That won't help. Another one is to chalk out a plan which is timeline based, and not being so stringent on the timelines. The timeline should be set up by the teams who are in your company. Another one is to look out for the pitfalls in DevOps. So that's very important. Things you should not be doing rather than the things you should be doing, because everybody claims that they are doing DevOps, and not everybody claims that they are really high gainers or leaders in that, right? I have not seen anybody say that we are experts in DevOps implementation in our company. We have heard everybody say that we are doing DevOps, but we don't know where to go with that. So we want someone to bridge in the gaps, because like I've told before, everybody is good at something. They have workspace, they have got skills, they have got people who are good at some part or the other of DevOps. So we just need to connect the dots together, right? So understanding what not to do is important. Something like not setting up goals that stringent, putting in one single tool at a time, choosing something, or let's say if you're making a decision on a tool, make sure that it is something that you think you would be going with for next 2 or 3 years, if not 5 years down the line. 5 years is too long a span. So 2 or 3 years, because you need to connect the dots together with other tools and create an ecosystem for yourself. So that is required. Analyzing your own skill sets is very important. When you have a Python developer in your company who is willing to automate stuff for you, why do you seek someone who would be simply bringing up a tool and putting it in your company? Another one is not talking about a complete ecosystem at once. So I said implement things at once, but your plan should be 5 years from now, right? That's how it would be looking 5 years from now. What kind of changes do you seek in people, in teams, the way projects are supposed to be built? And when you have a goal to reach, you can then combine views from different teams, people, and stakeholders together to come up to a technical conclusion. So bringing a technical conclusion or drawing a technical conclusion is the final thing that one does when it comes to DevOps implementation. It's not the first thing. People do the reverse part. They bring in the technical part first and then try to work it out to the company goals, which is going to be a failure. We try to move it reverse. Company goals first, your skill set second, come up to a conclusion, what you're trying to solve, and then try to seep it down and really like heat it up and take the gist of things that this is something that we need to implement. That is always going to be a success for you. And doing one thing at a time is very important because with DevOps, we are only trying to bring in agility. We are trying to complement the agile culture that we are having. And when we are trying to do so, we also need to be making sure that we stay nimble. We keep that agility within us. If someone tomorrow says that this feature that we are working on needs to be changed, we should be in that position because with vendor lock-ins and larger solutions or comprehensive solutions that people are bringing to the market, this is not possible. It becomes very difficult. Let's say you are with a tool for 5 years, you have all the data into it, which was okay for you until now, but now you want to transform to keep your pace with the technology in the industry. That simply doesn't happen, right? So these are the pitfalls. If one takes care of it and does the right thing, it should take care of itself because your teams would be driving all the innovation. They would be taking all the ownership and they would be driving the change for you, which is the best possible thing an organization can ever witness. Everyone working for the same goal, right? Rather than it is forced downwards. So that's what my views are on the thing.
That's really helpful. Thank you. And thank you really for your insights on this. That is sort of the questions that I had for you, but I wanted to pass it to Gio for some final words.
Ashish, John, thank you so much for the insights today. I think it was insightful, educational, and super helpful. Again, you just heard a conversation between Ashish Nanoka, John Anurelli, Jay Livens, and myself, Giovanni Tropiano. I want to thank everybody for taking the time today to be part of the conversation and also to listen. If you do have any questions, you can check out yashsolutions.com and actifio.com.